My name is Stuart McCall, and I'm a Vancouver-based artist, or I call myself a Vancouver-based artist, but actually I live across the river in Ladner. The name of this exhibition is Fantasy Gardens, and my contributions are 14 photographs of Fantasy Gardens, the theme park, show garden in Richmond, British Columbia.
My name is Wedman. I'm an artist from Vancouver, and I did one half of the work in Fantasy Gardens. My work in the exhibition are essentially courtroom drawings that I did at the trial of William van der Zam 20 years ago, 1992, and they are done on site in the courtroom. I was not hired by anybody in particular. I just did it on my own, on my own initiative. But I went in with a group of courtroom artists because the trial was getting a lot of publicity, a lot of attention. It was like a kind of slightly ironic, humorous political trial, a bit of a kangaroo court, I think, really in the end. So there were I think there was at least 6 courtroom artists from various news agencies, and then myself, and then the trial was by judge, so there was no jury. So we sat in the jury box. They treated us pretty well, and nobody asked for my credentials at all. I just went in with everybody else. But anyways, I was making these courtroom drawings, and it was, since I was making them for myself, I just did them in black and white and pencil. I remember at the time thinking that I would make a big painting of the trial in the style of Thomas Aiken's The Agnew Clinic, a big panoramic painting of called The Prisoner's Dock. But and I was working on the drawings, I think, to surround that project, and then I abandoned that project at some point in favor of something else. I don't recall.
What drew me to photograph Fantasy Gardens was it's kind of a theme that I've been working on for many years, of the sort of the landscape with evidence of human activity, which often involves like dilapidated buildings and old structures and maybe old roads that are overgrown with trees and weeds and what have you. So it kind of fit in with that theme, and I've passed it for decades. Driving up and down the highway, I'd see Fantasy Gardens off in the distance, hidden behind this dark cedar hedge, and once it was closed, I would just wonder what was going on in there. Is it just overgrowing, and what's happening? And so I wanted to go in and have a look. I ventured in off number 5 road. There was an opening in the forest, and there it was, Fantasy Gardens laid out before me, and it was completely empty. Everything was overgrown. It was quite spectacular, going through this deep sort of forest for about 50 feet and then emerging out into this open landscape. It was quite exciting. And all the structural elements of the garden were still completely intact, like the paved pathways. There was lamp posts, ornate lamp posts, all the water features with little bridges, and quite a few of the structures were still there as well. So as I ventured further into the garden, past the initial big water feature, deep away from the the buildings and windmills and castles, there was this great circular garden surrounded by a box hedge, and it had all these fallen down statues, which I thought was great. One particular picture that I like a lot is of the fallen statue with all these horse tails growing up around it, sort of engulfing it, which I think is quite a beautiful image. And also it's got a great a metaphoric quality to it, because the horse tails are a prehistoric plant which has been on the earth for like 100 million years, and it sort of symbolizes this permanence of nature versus these temporary little things that we build, and they don't last very long. My background as an artist goes way back. My first interest in photography was in high school, and I was at the time taking art in high school and doing mostly drawing and painting. But as soon as I discovered the camera and the instant gratification of the photograph, I quickly adopted it. And so I've been involved in photography forever.
I've been a practicing artist, mainly living in Vancouver, working in Vancouver where I was born, for about 30 years. Maybe more, but actually my first exhibition was probably 30 years ago. And I started out, I'm basically known as a painter. I started out doing very large-scale drawings, and did those for quite a number of years, and they were drawings that emulated the look of paintings in a kind of historical way. And when I finally moved on into painting, I think that the paintings kind of emulated the look of the drawings in the sense that they were sort of historical tableaus and had a certain kind of narrative characteristic to them. And over the years, I've moved further and further away from narrative history painting of a sort, a very idiosyncratic narrative history painting, but to something that's a bit more formal, and have a sort of ambivalent relationship with narrative, in fact. And I also have occasion to make films and media pieces, and book works and different things. I try to work in a variety of things, variety of forms of expression, just to mix it up a little bit. Stuart and I have known each other for, I don't know, at least that 30 years that I've been an artist, and on the occasions when I do anything to do with photography or anything technical at all, Stuart comes and helps me with that. And so we've had a good time working together on various projects, some more memorable than others.
This particular project, I'd begun doing photos of fantasy gardens, and I mentioned it to Neil one day, and he thought it was great. It was encouraging about the whole project, and he mentioned that he had, back in the 90s, gone to the trial of Bill Vander Zalm, and Neil on his own went to do drawings during the courtroom proceedings.
He got the idea that he remembered my Vander Zalm drawings, which I did, and as I said, I did them kind of in conjunction with as a planning device for a painting that never happened. So, so I almost had forgotten they even existed. I hadn't seen them in many, many years, probably since 1994 or something like that. When I worked on them, they were exhibited once. Anyway, so Stuart remembered that they were there, and he suggested that it might be a good idea to pair the two together, which I think is a really good idea because they're thematically kind of related, but at the same time there's quite a vast difference between these sort of dry businessman portraits and the very lush gardens. And at the same time there's a formal characteristic that works between the two. The photographs look like an enlarged version of a drawing in a sense that they're black and white, and the big thick frames are very similar to the thinner frames on the drawings and stuff. So I think they work well as counterbalance and kind of enrich that idea of a sort of a kind of a very personal take on a public history.
The connection between Neil's work and my work in this project are, well, there's the theme of Vander Zalm and fantasy gardens, but there's also a kind of a stylistic similarity. Both are black and white, which is pretty obvious, but just the sort of the textural quality of Neil's drawings, I find is reminds me quite a bit of a black and white textural photographs, which these are. There's a lot of branches and leaves and things creating this this deep texture, and Neil's drawings are made up of little scribbles. A lot of them are really coarse pencil lines, and they remind me of each other. when we decided to put the two works together and show them, we pitched it to not very many galleries, just 3, and one of which was Richmond Art Gallery. And I was hoping it would be shown here, but you never know whether it's going to fit in with the themes of the gallery, what was planned. So, but I was really glad when it was selected to be shown here.